James Nash.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We have just heard this morning that probation services in Nottinghamshire have been rated inadequate following visits by inspectors. They've been judged as understaffed with urgent improvements needed. I therefore welcome the £700 million increase for probation services, but can I ask the Lord Chancellor what other steps can be taken to drive up probation standards in constituencies like mine?
I'm very grateful to him for raising issues relating to the probation service. We've already expanded the number of people, the number of staff that we have. Last year we recruited 1,000 extra. This year we're on track to hit our target of 1,300 extra. So increasing resource with more staff, first and foremost, is a clear priority for us. Investing in technology to help the probation service be more productive. We've already funded programmes and pilots looking at AI tech designed to decrease the amount of file work that probation officers have to do in order to allow them to have more time to do the thing that only a human can do, which is spend time with the offender in front of them, come up with a proper plan to reduce their reoffending and therefore keep the public safe.
Callum Miller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much welcome the Lord Chancellor's statement today, and I know that victims and survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence in my constituency will do so as well. I thank her and her ministerial colleagues for cross-party working, including with my honourable friends from Eastbourne and Twickenham. I want to ask two questions relating to that. On the domestic abuse recommendations and the application of domestic abuse at sentencing, will the Lord Chancellor consider whether it is possible to tag those offences retrospectively as well as at sentencing looking forward? And I welcomed her remarks on transcripts and transparency. In the light of the pilot around transcripts for sexual violence and rape, will she consider whether it could be included that the entire transcript, not just the transcript of sentencing for these cases, could be included in that pilot?
On the issue of tagging retrospectively, I think I will certainly go away and have a look. I suspect, though I don't want to mislead him or the House, that a retrospective trawl of all cases, including common assault, which is actually where we see the most amount of domestic abuse cases land in terms of charge and criminal case, I think that might be beyond where we are able to get to with the data available to us and the time that that would take. But going forward, we will absolutely try to capture exactly those cases, so not just domestic abuse connected offences, but other offences like common assault, which we know have taken place in a domestic abuse context. They will all be flagged and proper data kept going forward. On transcripts, the availability of sentencing remarks is what is currently available for other types of victims in murder cases and so on, and it's the extension of that to victims of rape and serious sexual violence. I just repeat the point I made earlier. I believe in a transparent justice system. I would like to be in a position where actually we are using AI technology not just to make sentencing remarks available, but we're thinking about broadly what happens in courts and transcripts more widely. The thing that inhibits us is cost. We are trying to take out that cost by looking at AI models, but we can't proceed with anything unless we are absolutely certain about its accuracy, because he will, I'm sure, appreciate a document purporting to be a record of what was said at court needs to be bang on.
Douglas McAllister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I welcome the fact that this government is getting on and building the largest prison expansion programme since the Victorians. Labour government in action, fixing the Tory prison crisis once and for all. Can I ask the Minister, however, to learn from the SNP Scottish Government's abject failure? The new Berlin-Glasgow prison project, delayed again, now won't be ready until 2028. 9 years late, and the cost has soared from £100 million to a staggering £1 billion for one prison. Will we learn lessons from SNP failure?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. Let me tell him that we've already learned the lessons of the Tory party's failure. I'm very sorry to hear about the situation that he describes in Scotland, but the Conservative Party's failure on prison building stemmed from two things. They could not get past their own backbenchers, and so the planning delays added billions to the cost of prison place expansion, and then they didn't make the funding certain and available in the amount that was needed in order to stimulate the funding at the rate required. We have reversed both of those things. We've made £4.7 billion available, and we made it very clear planning will not get in the way of prison building.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Several years ago, I was a magistrate in Westminster. My father was a magistrate in North Wiltshire. And we lamented a great deal where we put people into prison, and we found that there was a whole list of antecedents every time, and it recurred all the time. Could the Minister tell the House what assurances she can give us around prison education, rehabilitation programmes and regular work programmes, that we will avoid this pattern of, with good intentions, prescribing solutions that don't work, that cost a lot of money, and actually leave the public pretty dissatisfied with the justice system?
Look, I thank the Honourable Member for his question. Let me pay tribute to him, to his father, and to magistrates all over our country. They do an incredibly valuable job in keeping our justice system going. And in fact, magistrates deal with 90% of all criminal cases in our country. Let me just say to him on the issue of what he's really referring to as prolific offending, those people that keep coming back, cycling in and out of the system. The review recommends, and we will take this forward, and I will set out more proposals as we bring legislation forward, that we switch to a model of intensive supervision courts where a judge is in charge of making sure that a treatment programme is being adhered to. The early pilots in this country, and in fairness they were started under the previous government, those early pilots have shown very, very positive progress in helping those offenders turn their lives around and break the cycle of addiction or mental health problems that often lead to prolific offending. We will build on that work.
Excellent. Polly Billington.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. What does the Minister make of the extraordinary admission by the former Lord Chancellor last year that the previous government chose not to take action on the prison crisis because you have to win votes? Well, fortunately, they didn't win any votes in Margate, Broadstairs and Ramsgate, which is why I stand here today to say that neighbourhoods in East Thanet are blighted by drug dealing, theft, burglary, sex trafficking and antisocial behaviour that ebbs and flows according to whether the main criminals, organisers, pimps and coordinators and dealers are in prison or out, causing mayhem. Now, does she agree with me that it's the shortage of prison cells because of the party opposite and the lack of alternative punishments because of the party opposite that contributes to this and blights the lives of our communities?
My honourable friend makes an incredibly powerful point. She is absolutely right. When you have a prison system on the point of collapse, it's not as if the criminals don't know that that's what's happening, and it's why it is so imperative that we get our system under control and we make sure that there is always a prison place available for those people that have to be locked up in order to keep the public safe. As to her point on winning votes, I think it rather shows the approach taken by the previous government. They put themselves first and not the country first.
Miss Savile Roberts.
On behalf of the Justice Union's Parliamentary Group, I welcome the Independence Review recognition of probation officers and join the National Association of Probation Officers' call for extra direct investment in staff now. Stable accommodation upon release is also key to reoffender rehabilitation. There are presently no approved premises for women in Wales. Women's centres struggle for funding. So how will she improve rehabilitation and life chances for Welsh women in the criminal justice system?
Well, I very much hope that the position for Welsh women will be the same for women in England, which is that we see a huge reduction in the number of women in Wales and in England entering the female prison estate, and that is because the combination of the measures that David Gauke has recommended on short sentences in particular will mean that fewer women go to prison. I will of course work with colleagues across Wales in looking at what more we can do on accommodation provision provision. I know there's no specific centre in Wales. She and I have discussed that. Previously, it was a promise made by the previous government without any funding attached to it, and so I was not able to make decisions when I first came into office that could reverse that. But we will work with the Women's Justice Board and others to make sure that the offer for women who are now no longer going to be going to prison is still strong and helps them on their rehabilitation journey.
Jonathan Hinder.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a day of shame for the Conservative Party. Yeah. One of their own has laid bare the scale of their failure in leaving us with nowhere to put the prisoners. They used to call themselves the Party of Law and Order. We'll take it from this former police inspector. They lost that label long ago and they are never getting it back. Yeah. But moving forward, the criminal justice system is just that, a system. Decisions taken on policing, courts, probation, prisons, all affect one another. So can the Lord Chancellor assure me that the implications for policing and the enforcement of these sentences is being taken into account when we roll out these changes?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. It is a day of shame for the Conservative Party. Yeah. I'm sorry to see that their attitude today is shameless. Madam Deputy Speaker, my friend makes a very important point in relation to policing. I've had a good conversation with police leaders and I'm determined to use the Criminal Justice Board, the National Criminal Justice Board, to make sure that every part of the criminal justice system is aligned and we take into account all of the interactions based on this review, but also the upcoming criminal courts review as well, in terms of the impact they have, not just for the bit of the justice system I am directly responsible for, but for the wider criminal justice system, including policing as a whole.
Very good. Mark Pritchard.
Yeah. I say to the Lord Chancellor, huge personal respect for her, and whilst I may disagree with some, by the way, not all of what she's announced today, I'd like to put that on the record. She mentions female offending. She will know there are 6 mother and baby units in female prisons in England. There are 90 applications for the last period known up to March 2024, and 64 places for mothers and 70 for babies, allowing for twins when some mothers have those. So clearly there are not enough places. As part of this review, has she considered where there is not serious and violent offending by female prisoners, we're getting more of these mothers and babies into the community rather than in prison?
Well, let me thank him for his remarks of personal respect, and it is shared from across this House, and I thank him for that. I also thank him for the important issue that he raises. Look, I hope to move to a position where the combined impact of the changes in this review and also the work that we are doing with the Women's Justice Board means that we see a huge drop in the number of female prisoners, and I'm particularly keen to ensure that pregnant women, mothers of young children, are not anywhere near our female prison estate in the future. Of course, for serious offenders, we will always need to make sure that prison is an option, but for the vast majority of women, they go to prison on short sentences for much less serious offences, and we need to turn that around.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Under the previous Conservative government, foreign criminals in our prisons rose to the tens of thousands shamefully. Can the Lord Chancellor outline to my constituents of Blackpool South what we're doing to deport these foreign criminals from our prisons as quickly as possible to free up those vital prison spaces?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. What we are doing is we are deporting at a faster rate than the previous government. We have accepted the review's recommendations to drop the threshold for early removal from this country from 50% of the custodial sentence to 30% of the custodial sentence, and we are going to work up urgently with the Home Office a plan for those who are sentenced to less than 3 years being deported as quickly as possible after sentencing itself.
James Wilde.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In her statement, the Lord Chancellor said, under her earned progression plans, if offenders follow prison rules, they will win earlier release, and the review says that thousands of offenders will benefit from this. Can she explain to my constituents why simply following the rules means serious offenders would only serve a third of their sentence? Where's the punishment and victims' interest in that approach?
well, he will know that the track record of his party in government was to run prisons boiling hot with violence off the charts. And, you know, the Shadow Justice Secretary has been showing a huge amount of concern for prison officers and the violence that they face in our prisons. I would have hoped that the party opposite might welcome some incentivisation in our prison system to make sure we can run safer prisons and keep our prison officers safe. Making sure that people follow the rules and that that's how they can earn an earlier release also means that for those who break the rules, they will serve longer in prison.
Andrew Pegs.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank my right honourable friend for her statement and her razor-like focus on fixing the broken justice and prison system this government inherited. Can I welcome the £700 million to help rebuild probation services and ask a question around rehabilitation and making community punishment pay? I think many people in my constituency will welcome a focus on community punishment being used to do the jobs around fixing potholes and rebuilding some of our services that are needed locally. But equally, I want community punishment to pay by breaking the cycle of reoffending. Can you tell us more about how this programme will actually get businesses into prisons, apprenticeships into prisons, and give young people, particularly young offenders, a way out of this cycle so we can stop them being in prison the second and third time?
My honourable friend raises a really important point. It's why this government has already rolled out employment work councils where prisons link up with employers in their region and try to make sure that there is jobs and training available for offenders leaving prison. We know that being able to work is a really important part of driving down reoffending, and that's a priority for this government. And of course, unpaid work is a very visible way of offenders making reparations to the communities that they have harmed. And so in our eyes, it has that as the primary focus. But of course, the discipline of doing that work can help for those offenders who are far away from the world of work at least get closer to it.
Jess Brown-Fuller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The government's plans lay out an expectation that they'll be able to manage ex-offenders in the community under intensive supervision. A probation officer in my Chichester constituency recently told me she was told off by her bosses for spending too long with offenders when she was booking just 15-minute appointments. So can the Lord Chancellor tell me when the promised investment will actually reach frontline probation services, and can she guarantee it will be enough to ensure public safety and actually reduce reoffending?
Well, let me reassure her this is a huge uplift in funding for probation. It's a £1.6 billion budget as it stands, and it increases by up to £700 million by the end of the spending review period. We have already invested in piloting AI and other technology designed to improve productivity. That is to say, where AI can complete much of the paperwork that a lot of probation officers spend far too much of their time on, often repeating the same information into different documents. That shows huge promise. We will roll that out at pace in order to give probation officers more time with the offenders in front of them, doing the thing that only a human can do, which is really get to grips with what is driving that offender's behaviour and to have a plan to tackle it, including the accessing of treatment programmes and other things in the community. So we are determined to make sure that the probation service can rise to the scale of this challenge as well. It's why the funding will help, and it's why our investment in the technology will also help.
We do have a number of members still to try and get in. If people could remember to keep their questions and their answers short. Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Location and curfew restrictions using electronic tagging to stop hyper-prolific offenders from going anywhere near a place that they could reoffend, a requirement to engage in mental health, drug and alcohol treatment, including the use of sobriety tags to address the cause of criminality, putting offenders back to work, cleaning up the communities they've harmed, chemical castration for sex offenders, the speeding up of foreign deportations, and the largest prison expansion ever. Will the Minister agree with me that this is about putting victims and the public first?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. This government is determined to clean up the mess left by the last Conservative government, to put victims first, to cut crime and make our communities safer.
John Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Scotland, under the yoke of the SNP, already has a presumption against short sentences, and now the new Scottish Commission looking at sentencing and penal policy has been accused of being packed with activists determined to keep criminals out of jail. Why is the Lord Chancellor here, following this lead and failing to put victims at the heart of the justice system?
Well said, John.
What absolute rubbish, I'm sorry to say. I'm not taking any lessons from him or the SNP. This is a programme for England and Wales that I'm directly responsible for, and we're going to make it work.
Hear, hear.
Go White. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When a previous government fails to take responsibility for the crisis they've caused, then they deserve a life sentence on the benches opposite. Yeah. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome the current construction of a new prison wing at Ranby Prison in my constituency. And it has been done by workshop-based Lane O'Rourke, who are specialists in modern methods of construction. And they are very much involved in many other construction projects across the country. If the Minister is seeking more sites for new prisons, could I propose Crown Road land across the road from HMP Ranby, and we very much welcome the new prison there.
I shall take her early bid for further building in her constituency under advisement immediately.
Blake Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Under these proposals, foreign criminals will be deported after serving 30% of their sentence, and I appreciate that this is an improvement. The public want them to be deported right away. Does the Lord Chancellor?
Look, I think that immediate deportation, which the review recommends in relation to sentences under 3 years, or immediate deportation meaning as quickly as possible, because you still have to detain people before you can get them on a plane and back to their own country of origin. That is something that we're going to work up proposals with the Home Office on. And then for more serious offenders over 3 years, we are going to bring that threshold down from 50 to 30%.
Josh Fenton-Glynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Right Honourable Member for her statement today. It's a sensible response to the over-incarceration and prison places crisis. But can my honourable friend assure my Calder Valley constituents that notwithstanding these changes, the underreported and under-prosecuted crimes such as violence against women and girls will continue to be prioritised by this government?
Absolutely. This government is going to make sure that we are running a prison system that is sustainable and not on the point of collapse, so that we can make sure that dangerous offenders in this country are still being locked up, and we will make progress on our broader mission to halve the levels of violence against women and girls over 10 years.
Tessa Mond.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Lord Chancellor's statement and the work that David Gork has put in to inform everything that's happening today. As a member of the Justice Committee, I'm looking forward to seeing him before us shortly. Can I see clarity referred to as the so-called medication to manage problematic sexual arousal? And can she place the current research and conclusions that are available so far in the library so that we can all have information to understand what is involved in the data on which she and David Gork have relied?
I'm very happy to make sure that the evidence is available. What I would say to her is that the very small-scale pilot that I inherited had been running for some time without anybody really paying a huge amount of attention to it. The evidence from other jurisdictions where this is being rolled out a bit more widely is stronger, but our rollout, and I want to get to a national rollout, will start with 2 extra regions, 20 more prisons, and we will build the evidence base. We want things that work, but I do believe that the combination of chemical suppressants with psychological interventions can help with a cohort of particularly difficult sex offenders.
Ben Goldsborough.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. So in the last 4 years of the last Conservative government, the number of foreign national offenders increased. Now, call me old-fashioned, but I believe that those who commit crimes within the UK who are not UK citizens should not serve their sentence here. Now, today's report makes a good progress forward. I'd welcome my honourable friend to actually tackle this issue urgently, because it's what South Norfolk wants to see, and it will get capacity back to our prisons.
My honourable friend is absolutely right. We're already deporting more foreign national offenders than the previous government. We are taking forward the measures from the Gork Review to speed up and get more foreign offenders out of our system and back into their countries of origin.
Charlie Dewhurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I wholeheartedly support my honourable friend, the member for Mid-Bedfordshire, on his call for the immediate deportation of foreign criminals. But what is the Lord Chancellor doing to ensure that the courts are not holding up these deportations and that once deported, these criminals are never allowed back on these shores?
Well, he may have seen we've already announced, the Home Secretary, when she did the immigration white paper, I think just last week, that we are reviewing the use of Article 8 in relation to immigration cases. We'll bring forward our proposals on that in due course. We won't allow the misuse of our courts and the use of Article 8 to stop people who've got no right to be in this country from being able to stay in this country. But that will require changes to the immigration rules, which the Home Secretary is working on.
Justice Satter.
Does the Lord Chancellor agree with me that the voluntary and community sector can play a vital role in supporting offenders to rehabilitate and gain vital employment and housing, such as Pathways Care Farm and Access Community Trust in my constituency of Lowestoft, who helped to prevent this reoffending?
I thank my honourable friend. She let me pay tribute to the organisation in her constituency. Voluntary organisations such as that in her constituency play a hugely important role in helping the justice system succeed at rehabilitating offenders, and we will continue to work closely and build on the review's recommendations in this area.
Rachel Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Having sat on the Public Accounts Committee inquiry into prison overcrowding, I know full well the issue at hand and who to blame. But can the Right Honourable Lady assure me and my constituents that by not jailing criminals, my constituents will not be placed in more danger, and that when these individuals are in the community, that the local community itself will have a voice in the effectiveness and planning of these new sentences, lest we end up with similar community concerns as there are for bail hospitals in Tiverton and Minehead. Thank you.
Well, the thing that puts the whole country at risk, including current victims of crime and future potential victims of crime, is letting our prison system collapse. And I will never let that happen. And the measures that we are taking forward from the review today are designed to make sure this country never runs out of prison places ever again. I will make sure that there is ample time for debate and discussion across this House as we bring our legislation forward.
Josh Newbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Is the Lord Chancellor as astounded as I am at the hypocrisy of the party opposite? They really are the arsonists attacking the firefighters. We are having to clean up their mess because, in the words of the National Audit Office, this crisis is a result of their failure to ensure the number of prison places was aligned with criminal justice priorities.
I'm afraid, after some months in this job, facing the shadow ministers opposite, nothing about their behaviour surprises me anymore. I'll take notice, I think the country will notice, when they finally offer an apology for the absolute abject mess they left behind.
John Davies.
Speaker, police officers, magistrates and judges will report that for some offenders, they will rather go to prison to be back with their mates, watching Sky TV, having 3 square meals a day. Will the Lord Chancellor agree with me that those who do go to prison should be treated harshly and more robustly than was the case in the last 14 years of the Conservative government?
We want to make sure that our prisons are used to punish offenders, that they have to abide by strict prison rules, that they should engage with programmes in prison in order to bring down their propensity to re-offend, and that ultimately we succeed in keeping his constituents safe by turning out better citizens rather than better criminals.
Luke Meyer.
Speaker, I think there are thousands of decent, moderate Conservatives all across the country who will have seen the ridiculous spectacle today of the opposition denigrating David Gork, of all people, on the prison system. The review was absolutely clear that short sentences are driving reoffending, with 60% reoffending within the year. So can the Minister set out the steps she will be taking to cut crime and create fewer victims?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. We have to cut crime, have fewer victims and make sure that our streets are safe. That is why we have to make sure we never run out of prison places, that we never see the breakdown in law and order that would ensue if that were to happen, and that we take forward a package of measures that I've announced today that we will work on in legislation in the coming weeks and months. All of it designed to make sure that we don't run out of prison places, we put victims first and we cut crime in this country.
And the last question on the statement, Tristan Osborne.
Best until last, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a former police officer, community payback works. Does the Lord Chancellor agree with me and many of my colleagues in the criminal justice system that rehabilitation of offenders, including filling potholes, clearing fly tipping, is not only popular in Chatham and Aylesford, but in Newark and across the country?
My honourable friend makes an incredibly important point. I am determined that we toughen community punishment, that we make sure that unpaid work truly pays back to the communities that have been harmed by crime. It's why I'll work with businesses and with local authorities so we can all have a system that drives down reoffending, but where reparations are made to the communities that have been harmed by crime, whether they're in Newark, Birmingham, Ladywood or indeed anywhere else.
And that concludes the statement. I'll give a few moments for the front benches to swap over. Business statement, Leader of the House.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The business for the week commencing the 2nd of June includes Monday the 2nd of June, second reading of the Bus Services No. 2 Bill, Lords. Tuesday the 3rd of June, consideration of Lords amendments to the Armed Forces Commissioner Bill, followed by, if necessary, consideration of a Lords message. Followed by general debate on dementia care. The subject for this debate was determined by the Backbench Business Committee in an unallotted time. Wednesday the 4th of June, remaining stages of the Product Regulation and Meteorology Bill, Lords. Thursday the 5th of June, debate on a motion on high street banking closures and banking hubs, followed by debate on a motion on safety regulations in the construction and planning of battery energy storage sites. The subjects for these debates were determined by the Backbench Business Committee. Friday the 6th of June, the House will not be sitting. The provisional business for the week commencing the 9th of June will include Monday the 9th of June, remaining stages of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, Day 1, Tuesday the 10th of June, remaining stages of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, Day 2.
Shadow Minister Joy Morrissey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it is an honour to be responding again to business questions as we march on to recess. And I know that the Leader of the House has had a challenging few weeks, but I want to start by thanking her for everything that the Leader has done to advocate for members in this House. But first, I want to point out that this morning we learned the government has been prevented from signing their Chagos surrender deal by the High Court. When will the Prime Minister come to the House and explain this latest humiliation and masterclass in how not to negotiate in Britain's interests? Now, I know that members opposite and members across this House have often said things that we regret in the chamber and elsewhere. And I know that the Right Honourable Lady has said she regrets her words on rape gangs. But it is for the victims of those rape gangs to decide whether those regrets are enough. And it is time for the government to finally take action on this scandal. So will she grant a debate in government time on the rape gang scandal and commit the government to the national inquiry the victims deserve? Now, I spoke last time in business questions and asked the Leader of the House to ask the Chancellor to U-turn on her disastrous economic policies. Since then, things have got even worse. This week, inflation that they inherited at 2% from the last government has surged to 3.5%. Today, public sector net borrowing hit £20.2 billion, the fourth highest figure for the month since records began. We've had a disastrous budget followed by an emergency one, and it looks like the next one could be catastrophic. It seems, though, that the Deputy Prime Minister has also had enough of the Chancellor's economic policies, too. Except We on this side want to see the tax raids on businesses and households reversed. The Deputy Prime Minister wants more tax and more spend. But then, yesterday, the Prime Minister wouldn't rule out more tax rises either. So I think we can all see what's coming. £40 billion of tax rises last autumn was never going to be enough for this government. A government that is tough with the vulnerable, but weak with the unions. Now, she may be on leadership manoeuvres, but it was quite the shopping list of new taxes that the Deputy Prime Minister is after. Although, curiously, further taxes on second homes wasn't included. It is now the people who save hard for their retirement and build businesses that are next in the firing line for the tax raid obsession of this Labour government. So, to pensioners, farmers, and business owners, we can now add savers to the list of people that this government seemed determined to make poorer. So, will the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time on the government's economic plans so the Deputy Prime Minister can also come and set out her tax plans for the House? I'm very interested to see the tag team operation there. Or, if the Deputy Prime Minister is otherwise engaged, maybe we could turn our attention to yesterday's welcome U-turn from the Prime Minister. Now, I understand the Prime Minister has always been gifted with the most flexible of principles. But it was quite the slight yesterday to see him admit to promising a U-turn on punishing pensioners without any date for the U-turn or explanation of whether it would be all or just some pensioners. Crucially, we didn't hear an apology from him. So, will the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time on the winter fuel payment U-turn so the Chancellor or the PM can come to this House and apologize to pensioners and set out when she will give pensioners the certainty they can heat their homes next winter? Let me conclude by saying this. Yes, we are, thank you. We are watching the slow motion car crash with no economic plan but to tax and spend as fast as they can. It's not the gingerbread man, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's fast and tax as fast as they can, and that's what's happening here. And we are watching the chaos of a Chancellor and a Deputy Prime Minister falling all over themselves to see who can put up the most taxes. We are watching a Prime Minister who has to undo the decisions of his own government in the space of months, but can't bring himself to apologize. The government is already showing that it has failed to learn the lessons of all socialist governments, that eventually they run out of everyone else's money. This one seems determined to do so in record time. And the only losers, Madam Deputy Speaker, will be the British people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, can I congratulate Tottenham Hotspur and Crystal Palace football clubs on both winning silverware for the first time in a long time. North and South London celebrate, well, both sides of Manchester commiserate, I'm afraid. But anyway, she asked me about something important. Can I just say that now that the injunction has been lifted, with the permission of Mr Speaker, we will do a statement, the Defence Secretary will do a statement later today, probably at the end of business, on the future of the Diego Garcia military base following those developments. And I know the whole House will want to send a very clear message, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we condemn the brutal murder of the Israeli embassy staff in Washington overnight. We stand firmly together against anti-Semitism. And today also marks the 8th anniversary of the Manchester Arena attack in my constituency, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House will be with the families of those affected. I also want to put on record my reflection of the determination of Figan Murray with her campaigning for Martin's Law. I'm really proud that it was this Labour government and our Prime Minister who kept that promise to Figan to introduce Martin's Law, which is now an Act of Parliament. Today also marks the day a year since the general election was called, Madam Deputy Speaker. In the rain, I think we all remember that. But let's be honest, the rain is still pouring on the Conservative Party. They don't seem to have learnt very much. They might have thought that from that day things couldn't get even worse, but they are doing, aren't they? But I do want to say to the Honourable Lady, I very much respect her and enjoy working with her on the Modernisation Committee and across the House, and I thank her for yet again stepping in at short notice to cover for the Shadow Leader, who I think is performing other parliamentary functions elsewhere. I'm sure we'll see him back soon. She asks me about grooming gangs, and I just want to be absolutely clear that this government, myself included, we want the victims and the survivors to be at the absolute heart of everything that we do, and that their terrible experiences are acted on and that those responsible are brought to justice. And that's exactly what we are doing, and we will leave no stone unturned in bringing about justice for the victims. And what they want first and foremost is for action to be taken for all of those recommendations, those many recommendations of the previous national inquiry to be implemented, and that's what we're doing. And also that Louise Casey's full audit of these matters will be brought to this House in very short order. She asks about a number of issues relating to the economy, but I do think, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's just worth us reminding ourselves what we inherited and what we have actually had to deal with since we came into office. We had to fix the gaping hole, and they don't want to talk about it, the gaping hole that their party left in the public finances. Pay deals on desks but unfunded. Billions of pounds on asylum hotels not accounted for. All the reserves gone in July of the financial year. New hospitals, nothing more than a work of fiction. And that's why we had to come in and fix the economy and get economic stability back into the economy. Because those who pay the heaviest price when the economy crashes and when markets lose confidence are those on fixed incomes, like pensioners and the poorest in society. And it's also the value of people's pensions that fall as well. So we've acted on the £22 billion black hole, and we've got the economy going again. And they don't like to hear it, but that's exactly what we're doing. Growth is up. Interest rates have been cut 4 times since the general election. 500,000 more people have moved into work since the general election, and the UK is now the fastest growing European economy in the G7. And real wages have gone up for the first time in a decade after the party opposite left living standards fallen for the first time in our history over their parliament. So we are fixing the mess that they left behind. And she asks about winter fuel as well. And as the Prime Minister made clear yesterday, now that the economy is showing those signs of recovery because of the actions that we've taken, we want to look at that threshold. Because first and foremost, we want to make sure that people feel the benefits of that economic growth and that they've got more money in their pockets, and that includes pensions as well. However, we won't be making spending commitments without saying where the money's coming from, and it's absolutely right that those decisions are made in a future fiscal event, as the Prime Minister said yesterday. But Madam Deputy Speaker, a year on from that rainy day on Downing Street, it couldn't be clearer, could it really? Because the Conservative Party really are having an existential identity crisis. A year on from their worst defeat, they're still going backwards. They don't know who they are anymore. They don't know what they stand for anymore, and they just don't know what they're even doing. They once proudly stood for free trade, and now they're against any trade deals. They used to claim to be the party of business, but in opposing our agreement with the EU, they're setting themselves against the FSB, the CBI, the British Chamber of Commerce, Hospitality UK and the Food and Drink Association. They were once for levelling up and reindustrialisation of the North, but now they're against new energy infrastructure and the jobs of the future. And they were once compassionate Conservatives, I remember that very famously, supporting the NHS, but now they oppose the much-needed funding that it's getting. So, a year on, Madam Deputy Speaker, for that rainy day in Downing Street, they just haven't learnt a thing, and they haven't said sorry for the mess they've left behind, whether it's on the economy or whether it's on prisons, as we just heard earlier from a statement. It's down to this Labour government to clear up the mess that they left, to fix the economy, to fix public services, boost people's living standards, cut immigration and get the waiting list down.
John Trickett.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Can I associate myself first with the comments repudiating anti-Semitism from my honourable right friend, the leader. In South Emsall, in my constituency, there is a clay pit where they've been working for 14 years, 4 years after the licence expired. Last year, an enforcement notice was taken out by the Environment Agency, and now we hear there are multiple breaches of the licence, but nothing has yet been done to close that operation down. So can we have a debate in government time on the enforcement powers of the Environment Agency in order that I can express my wish that immediate action is now taking place to protect that community?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear about the situation he describes in his constituency, where he does great work on behalf of his constituents, and that enforcement action isn't being taken where it should be. I will ensure that the Minister has heard his question today and that the Environment Agency take the action that they should be doing.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Marie Goldman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yesterday, it was revealed by the charities Tommy's and Sands that, tragically, delays in improving NHS maternity care are costing the lives of hundreds of babies a year. It follows the Care Quality Commission's findings that 65% of maternity units are not sufficiently safe, putting women and babies under threat. So will the leader grant government time to debate the crisis unfolding in our maternity units, the failure to implement the immediate and essential actions in the Ockenden review, and the government's decision to end the ring-fencing of £100 million for vital improvements to maternity care?
Well, can I thank her for that question? And as a mother myself, and I'm sure many others across this House, we all pay tribute to the amazing work that midwives and our maternity services do. I'm sure we can all remember every midwife that we have dealt with through our own births and other people's. She's absolutely right that after the parlour state that our maternity services were left in by the previous government, we do need to learn the lessons, and we need to make sure that our maternity services are fit for purpose, that they have the funding that they need, and that we take on board all of the experiences of those that have used the services and of the many inquiries, including the Ockenden inquiry. That's what the Secretary of State is doing. He will come to this House after he's considered all of those findings and all of those conversations to make an update. But can I assure her that the funding levels for maternity services have not gone down at all since the election, even though she describes the ring fence.
Caroline Harris.
Deputy Speaker. Over the last few days, the Welsh Rugby Union has announced plans to introduce a disproportionate funding formula that will disadvantage both the Ospreys and the Scarlets Rugby Union teams. Will the Leader of the House ask colleagues at the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to add their voices to a group of cross-party Welsh MPs who are asking the WRU to find a way to protect and equally support all four equally important regional Welsh rugby teams?
Well, she's a great champion for Welsh rugby and raises these issues with me regularly in these sessions. And I'm really sorry to hear about the new funding arrangements. I'm sure that Welsh Rugby have heard her question today and will respond and take action, and I will ensure a minister gets in touch with her as well.
On behalf of the Backbench Committee, Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Chairman sends his apologies to you in the House. I know he will be pleased to have heard the Leader's comments about Tottenham Hotspur. In addition to the business already announced, the committee agreed at its meeting earlier this week that there would be another select committee report on Thursday, June the 5th, and that would be the Justice Select Committee. They also agreed debates in the Chamber on the 19th of June on incontinence and Windrush Day, and newly accepted debates for Westminster Hall for the 16th of June would be hydrogen-powered aviation, the role of carers, education in improving social mobility, and Down syndrome regression order. Could I also remind members that application forms for the main Estimates Day debates, which we anticipate in late June, are now available on the Backbench Business Committee website. And as regards general applications, we are swamped with applications, which is good news in one sense, but I would urge members to ensure that they get their applications in as quickly as possible, particularly if they're looking for a chamber debate, as we've got enough on the waiting list now to fill the chamber until November. Moving on, Madam Deputy Speaker, last week I was privileged to meet some teenagers from the Teenage Cancer Trust who were in Parliament following submitting a letter into the Department of Health and Social Care. They were remarkable young people who have clearly had an awful experience with cancer at an early age. So could I perhaps gently suggest to the Leader that she might like to allocate some government time for a debate on that subject? Thank you.
Well, can I first of all thank the Honourable Gentleman for stepping in for the Chair of the Backbench Business Committee, who I understand is still out celebrating in Bilbao and might eventually make his way back when he's finished celebrating, hopefully, and we'll look forward to seeing him after recess. And could I also pay tribute to the Honourable Gentleman for all his work that he does in business questions and elsewhere in raising the issues around British Steel and many of those issues in his own area of Scunthorpe. He raises a really important issue of teenage cancer, and I know that many of us have met those young people who are living with cancer and are getting treatment from cancer. I know the Secretary of State is particularly committed to these issues, and I'm sure he will be updating the House regularly.
Clive Efford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On Tuesday, those that are infected and affected by the contaminated blood scandal protested in Whitehall and handed in letters to number 10 Downing Street. They're angry that they've been excluded from overseeing the compensation process, and that the speed of the compensation process as a consequence of that is very slow. The government has promised a debate in government time on the contaminated blood scandal. Can I ask my right honourable friend, are we likely to get that debate this side of the summer recess?
Well, can I thank him once again for raising these important matters, which he does consistently and regularly. He knows that the government is committed to and will pay comprehensive compensation to the infected and affected in the infected blood scandal, and we are working at pace to ensure that compensation is paid out. We are also committed to a debate. We had a statement last week, I think, or the week before, a couple of weeks ago, to this House, and I will ensure that a debate, as promised, is forthcoming.
Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've been working with residents of Meadowcroft Retirement Home in Bushey. They have suffered repeated failures by Anchor Homes, which has culminated this week in residents not being able to get an ambulance to that facility because of a faulty key box. Will the leader therefore find time for the House to debate the exploitation of vulnerable residents by companies like this?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear of this shocking incident from Anchor Homes. They have a responsibility to ensure, as he knows, that care can get in, that ambulances can get in, and this is really shocking to hear. And it's important that we do make sure that our care homes are operating to the highest standards, that they have the best people working there, and that all the residents can be safe and cared for. And I'm sure this would make a very popular topic for a debate.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Since the creation of the role of the National Security Advisor in 2010, every incumbent has come before the Joint Committee on National Security Strategy until this government. The Leader of the House will understand how accountability to this place is the cornerstone of our democracy. A failure for the NSA to meet with the committee would set a dangerous precedent for future governments to avoid parliamentary scrutiny. So will she use her position as a representative of this House in government to make sure that the NSA is held to account and appears before the committee?
Well, can I thank him for raising this with me directly and here today, and with the Leader of the House of Lords as well. And I will respond to him properly shortly as well. But we do take accountability very seriously indeed, and I will ensure that the committee is updated on the government's work to protect UK national security, and that relevant people are able to come before the committee to be scrutinised.
Before I call the next member, I am hoping to end this business statement around 2 o'clock. So can members please help each other out by keeping questions and answers short. Andrew Rossendale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following the outcome of the UK-EU summit earlier this week, will the Leader of the House grant a debate in government time about the state of British democracy? On the 23rd of June 2016, 70% of my constituents in Romford voted to leave the European Union, as did the rest of the United Kingdom. Yet this so-called EU reset is, in fact, a surrender of our hard-won Brexit freedoms. Rule-taking from Brussels once again, ECJ back in charge, British fish handed over to 2038, and billions of payments back to the European Union. Will the Leader of the House please let the British people's views be paramount and not the short-term views of this government?
Well, I think what people voted for in the referendum was to leave the European Union, but to retain many benefits of trade and cooperation, which his government failed to negotiate in the aftermath of that referendum, and this government has brought about. And he can't have it both ways, because one of the promises that his government made was that leaving the EU meant we could do lots of other free trade deals with other countries. That's what this government has delivered. A trade deal with India, unique and unprecedented, and a trade deal with the US as well. So we can't have surrendered ourselves to the EU if we're getting those trade deals at the same time as securing the benefits. And he will know that in actual fact what has happened since we've left the EU is that we've had to adopt all the standards and regulations from the EU in order to continue trading with them, but we've had absolutely no benefit from doing that. And now we've got those free trade benefits as well as doing that. So I'm sorry to say our deal is far better than the deal that his government got.
Neil Kyle.
Speaker. On Saturday, my constituent Vimal Pandya received Freedom of Bermondsey at Southwark Cathedral for his exceptional work running the Royal Hyde Community Kitchen, feeding hundreds of people weekly. For his